Hello. I wanted to make a video on the occult today. The reason why is it's based on some of my visions that I had during my awakening, and then what I've found since then, which I thought might be helpful to some people who are going through awakenings, or who have come across information that they don't really understand, especially if they've been looking at conspiracy theory videos and things like that. So basically, during my awakening, I was being told what was wrong with the world and why we've been having these problems and why things are the way that they are. And part of that was I was tying bits of string around my wrist. I was shown two celebrities, both of which have been linked to religions that are kind of cultish. They're called religions, but they could be seen as a cult. And I tied a red piece of string around my wrist and then a white piece of string, and I was told that the red piece of string is the problem and I am the white piece of string. This is what I'm here to do. This is how I counteract the problem. And then I had visions of these people in these red and black hooded cloaks and they were creating this problem on the planet. I mean, there was various other problems as well, but this was something that they were creating. And I started doing a lot of research after that, after my whole awakening anyway. I started doing research and I started coming across information on the occult, which I had very little knowledge of, and would have thought was bullshit back before my awakening, and thought that there's nothing to it. But as it was, I started researching and looking into the occult and looking into Kabbalah and the fact that it is mysticism and things like that. So looking into that side of things, and then I started seeing signs of it in my reality. And what my guide said to me, I was in the Tate Modern and there was a load of occult symbolic artwork there, and I was feeling very uneasy and uncomfortable about being there and having my kids there, because it had this really dark vibe to it. It was some of it was quite disturbing, and I was this is a free exhibition and you're showing this kind of thing which is really dark and disturbing. And I had to rush my kids through because it was just really, really unsettling. And my guides basically said to me about that experience, this is what they're trying to bring into the world, this kind of dark reality. That's what they're trying to bring into the world. That's what they're trying to create. And do you want that to be your reality? And they showed me a whole bunch of stuff, what they were trying to create and what reality would be like if they were creating that. And I was no, that is not what I want for my reality. So they showed me another reality where they don't create that, and what was created in its place, and they said, this is what you will experience, this is what you've seen in your visions, and this will be the earth that you experience once all this dark occult stuff has kind of gone and is no longer sort of influencing reality, and they're not creating it for you. They're not allowed to do that because this is a free will system, and enough of you have kind of stood up and said, no, we do not wish for this dark occult world to be manifested. That we do not wish that to be what is manifested into our reality. That's not the reality that we wish to experience. So they basically can't do it because enough of us have stood up and said, no, that's not what we want for our reality, and that. But like, I've been learning a lot about the occult and just the symbology and things like that, especially on the dark side. I mean, obviously you have a light side and you have a dark side, and like really understanding the dark side more, especially like the darker energies and the darker kind of like we're shifting out of this dark paradigm into another one, and that, and how this darkness, like, you know, it's got power to it. It's a very seductive power, and that, like, I think back to when I was in a dark place and was very self-destructive, and like part of me loved that destructive power. Part of me loved, you know, that feeling of, you know, being very self-destructive and things like that. But at the same time, it wasn't bringing me anything good in my life. It was bringing me very sort of negative experiences and a lot of pain and hurt and things like that from being in this place of hate and anger and, you know, these really negative emotions. So while it had power to it, it was a very destructive power. And that's what we're seeing shift at the moment, is we're shifting away from this very destructive power that the earth has had, like, because of these dark occult forces that have been at play. I mean, you can look back in history. Hitler was massively into the occult. Like, obviously in our normal 3D reality, it's kind of viewed as like, you know, nothing, like people believing in shit and stuff like that. They don't really like fully understand that there is power to it, that there are possibly other beings and entities that, you know, can manipulate and kind of give their power to other people to create like reality. And, you know, there's people who are very aware of this on the planet and are creating that darkness, and then there's people who are very aware of this on the planet who are creating the light. You know, we're both creating at the same time, and we're in balance at the moment where the scales are going to tip in time, and more people are going to want to be creating the light, because the darkness is going to come to light, and they're going to want to be creating with the light rather than being controlled and manipulated by the dark. And this will like feed into my next video, which is on entity attacks and that, and you know, how that relates to our reality, and, you know, how people might be being manipulated by the dark and not even realize that they are being manipulated by the dark because they think it's all them. But I'll go into that in another video. But with the occult and everything like that, like, I started seeing a lot of signs of it in reality, and like then kind of went into the whole conspiracy theory side of things, because like, you know, it's like you look at one thing and then you start researching it, and then you start seeing signs of it, and then all of a sudden other people are talking about it, and they're kind of saying, look, you know, this is what they're kind of doing with these dark rituals and these dark kind of things and stuff like that. You know, this is what they're trying to create for us, you know, with all their dark rituals and things like that. And you can see, like, you know, how is there right in front of our faces. Everyone will just be putting it down to being like normal and like, you know, part of an act or whatever, but, you know, there's very dark occultist kind of themes running through it and that. So, you know, there's a lot of it around in our reality, and not a lot of people have the awareness of it. but then some people do have the awareness of it, and it can be quite frightening for them to kind of see that, like, you know, this is sort of like going on in reality, and this is actually happening, and, you know, there's this very dark reality. And it can be like, you know, oh my god, they've got so much power, you know, oh my god, how are we ever going to be able to fight against it? How are we ever going to be able to do anything? Like, you know, they've got all this dark power, how are we ever going to be able to do anything about it? Yet there's like a lot, especially in the awakened community, a lot of people doing something about it all the time. You know, it's not like they kind of do these rituals and nobody does anything about it. Like, people are aware that they're doing these things and they're counteracting it. Like, they're acting as a counterbalance, because at the moment we are balanced in our kind of, you know, the light is slightly higher than the dark at the moment in its capacity. But it's like, you know, just really understanding that all of this is a choice. Like, I mean, okay, obviously we're in this spiritual war, but we get to choose which side we want to be on, you know. And I was told in my awakening that we were in a spiritual war. I was shown that and told that, like, you know, we are in this war and that. And it's like, you know, we get to choose. The dark is like a very consuming force, and it's like consuming souls, and it's just consuming. And I said about this in my consciousness video, there's like a dark kind of consciousness that's consuming people. And the light is a more expansive kind of way to go. It's a more natural state of being. So you kind of can't get really pissed at the dark, because it's there for a reason, and it's there so we can find our way back to the light. Like, so we can kind of like really go within ourselves and find out who we really are, like what we're all about, like, you know, really kind of like learn who we really are. And a lot of people are waking up to that, and they're doing the inner work, and like they may have had dark moments and they may have had a lot of darkness in their lives, but then they're kind of like looking inside themselves and being like, is that me? Is that truly me? Is that truly who I am? I mean, I can see how I was consumed by this darkness, and I can see like it has a lot of power to it, but is that truly who I am? And it's like that questioning kind of tips the scales even further in our favour. So like the amount of darkness on the planet reduces and the amount of light goes up, because most people, when it really comes down to it, will be like, you know, kind of like, you know, I want better, I want like things to be better, I don't want all this crap, I don't, you know, we just want peace, we want harmony, we want like the world to be better. And like really going into yourselves and kind of like questioning what you're about, and that, like, are you about hate and anger and low vibrations, or are you more about the higher vibrational side of things? Are you more kind of in tune with the love and the light, or are you in hate, anger and darkness with those consuming feelings that are very destructive? Like, do you hold on to a lot of destructive kind of power in yourself, or have you let go of like all that hate and anger and gone into like a place of love and seeing that, you know, okay, everything's happening for a reason, and that we're waking up for a reason, that, you know, this time exists so we can wake up to our true nature and that. And, you know, what is our true nature? Like, given like a choice, which are we going to choose? Are we going to choose to turn against people and want to destroy people, or are we going to want to uplift people and kind of, you know, set them free and make them feel better and not see them suffering. Like, given that choice, which side do we choose? The dark, destructive force, or the lighter, creative flow with the universe, like that universal energy, that like love frequency. You know, that's what I experienced during my awakening, and it was like all this love coming into me, and I'm like, what is that? You know, I'm questioning, and they're like, do you want to know more? And I'm like, yeah, of course I want to know more. And then, like, you know, reality shifted. But it's like, you know, I know that that's where I come from. I know that that is my core essence as a being, as a human being. That is my core. That is my true essence. That is truly who I am. I am not the dark, destructive force. I am the love and the light and the, you know, creative force, and that I do not wish to destroy anything. I wish to see things prosper and flow, and, you know, I wish to see a better world and everything like that. And it's like, you know, having this kind of awareness of the occult, and, you know, seeing the, you know, throughout history, it's always been kind of there in the background, not like right in our faces, but it's always been in the background. There's always been this mysticism, there's always been this spirituality, there's always been, like, you know, these beings of the light and beings of the dark and everything like that. They've always been kind of documented throughout history, and people have experienced, like, when you're really researching this and you go into people's experiences and people are talking about their experiences, you know, you can really see how the two forces are, like, ever present in our reality. And that, you know, and it's like having that awareness and that understanding and knowing that you have a choice of which side you're playing. Like, are you playing the dark, destructive side that wants to see everything fucking burn and shit like that, like, or are you playing the light side that wants to see the world flourish and prosper and humanity to really come into its own, and, you know, for people to really wake up to their true divine nature? Like, which side will you kind of be on, given a choice? And it's like, now we're being given that choice. Now it's time to decide which side we wish to be on, which reality we wish to experience. Like, you know, there's so much dark occult stuff in the world already. You can see it all over the place if you go looking for it. But there's also so much light and love in the world as well that way outweighs the dark occult stuff and that. So, like, in one respect, you know, we've already won the war, but the battle is not over, because now it's like time for people to wake up and make a choice over which side they're going to be on. And I think, given that choice, a lot of people would choose the light. And, you know, those who are choosing the dark, you know, there's a reason that they're choosing the dark as well. There's a reason. Like, you know, it's like they're wounding inside. They've got all this wounding inside them that is kind of driving them towards this dark, destructive, hateful, angry sort of, like, you know, reality and that. So it's like, you know, looking at those people that have chosen that and realizing that there is something, you know, in them that is making them choose that rather than the love and the light. You know, because if you'd asked me a few years ago, like before my awakening and before I'd felt that love energy, I would have been like, oh my god, it's such bullshit. Like, I was so dark, and I would have been in that dark, angry, like, consuming, kind of destructive, because that's where I was. I was so hurt, I was so angry, I was so fucking, like, just, you know, in that self-destruction kind of mode. So given a choice back then, you know, without feeling all that love, then would I have chosen differently? Probably, because I was a totally different person back then. But now, given the choice and knowing where I come from, that I do come from this love and light energy, you know, choosing to embody that and choosing that way of being over the darkness, which is like, you know, it's a very powerful force, the darkness. It's not like some little kind of thing. It's very, very powerful. And a lot of people do find themselves dwelling within those lower like vibrations and stuff like that, within the darkness, within the hate, within the anger and everything. So, you know, you can see why there is like this duality in the world, and that, you know, it's just been created over time, you know. And if you look at it from one respect, it's all perfect, it's all exactly how it is supposed to be. It is all exactly how it's supposed to be. This is like what the awakening is about. Everything is like coming to light, and then we're getting to choose which side we're playing. Like, you know, whether we want to be neutral, whether we want to be dark, whether we want to be light, you know, you get to choose, you know, whether you want to know, whether you don't want to know, whether you want to just totally ignore everything, whether you want to get involved and, like, you know, take part in the mass meditations and things like that. Like, this is your choice at this time now, you know. And it's like a really kind of great place to be, because the more people waking up, the more they're choosing to love. And that, like, it's an amazing moment for humanity, because we are choosing to love. We are choosing love over everything else. We are choosing love, and that is so powerful. You know, we're choosing love over everything else. So yeah, I mean, that's like briefly on the occult. You know, it's always been there throughout history. It's always been present. You know, and it's like kind of seeing that it is present. It may not be present in your 3D reality. It may be something that you'd think of like as in a film. Like, oh, that sounds like it's out of a film, when like really there's more to it than that. But I'll go into it more when I talk about entity attacks and that, because it's easier to kind of link it to that. Okay, that was all. Okay, cheerio.